I desperately want to be having a different conversation.
I don't know what the conversation is you want to have.
Let's start from a different perspective.
Okay.
Bitcoin fixes everything. Now, you don't literally believe that.
I don't
literally believe. But somebody somehow thinks that this is a good slogan. So the question is, okay, assume that it doesn't fix everything. Assume that Bitcoin fixes a lot. Okay? That is a statement I would be up for. I think you guys would be up for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get to a next thing, or does the Bitcoin culture, you see, the tech culture should have fixed science, but it couldn't. Mark Zuckerberg and Yuri Milner, came up with a prize. Let's give $3 million to people who are really good at science. Okay, well, it didn't do very much. Why couldn't science's little brother fix science? Well, in part because the ethos of software is we're here to destroy things that look old. Okay? And in some sense, that's where Bitcoin gets its energy. We're here to destroy things that look old and diseased and flabby. Okay, good on you. Now, what does the lesson of that destruction teach? Well, one thing it taught us in tech was don't build a new university. Disintermediate. Do Khan Academy. Okay? So you keep learning that lesson over and over and over again, but you never learn that there are some times when you want to go the other direction. This would be, in biology, this would be called regulated expression. There's some times when you want to break something up. There are other times when you want to bring something together. And it's not always the same thing. So my question is, does Bitcoin as a community, which of course isn't a community, but it's so tiresome. Every time you say something, immediately somebody will just come back with, no, you don't understand.
It's because we're decentralized. We all have different opinions.
It's because it's boring. I'm sorry to say it. It's just boring to go through this.
Go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Is there a part of this community that understands time to build? Yeah. Time to build the sorts of things that look awful right now, that may become awful with time. They may degrade, right? Maybe you had like Edward R. Murrow and CBS News, and maybe CBS News got horrible. But there was a period of time where CBS News really mattered. Okay? Right now, it's time to build some stuff, to search for solutions to our problems. Problems of economic distribution, post-capitalism, post-communism. What comes after both capitalism and communism? What comes after, what comes in life cycle terms after the pill and reliable paternity tests? What comes in work after telecommuting? We've got 75 years of pent-up questions where we stayed in a stasis, where we're leading archaic lives in general. And everyone knows that our lives don't really make sense anymore. We have archaic money. We have archaic national stories. Okay, it's time for something new. And Bitcoin is a constructive story about destroying the old. But I'm looking for more of a story, given that it's the money, and the reason that money is so important is that it's fungible and allows us to do everything else. Right now, I would like to build a strategy for looking for human survival situations.
Maybe that can only be done in the fiat world. Maybe maybe the story of Bitcoin is the only way to win is not play, radical individualism. A lot of them are anonymous.
Maybe I want to go back to you just made the single best case for going back to something that I don't want to do. I don't want to go back into the fiat world. I want it to be Bitcoin and things of that nature. If the idea is that Bitcoin kind of mentality is so rooted in not centralizing, not having leaders, not, no trust, blah, blah, blah. If the problem is that all of that is co-traveling, that is the overlearned message that comes from having to deal with central bankers, that comes to dealing with lying activists posing as journalists, that comes from looking at citation cartels inside of academics, where people are just so deep in the political economy that they've stopped caring about their subjects. Okay, so I keep hearing this thing is honest. It's, it fixes things. And well, the question is, does it? Is there enough trust in this community? Is there enough that's positive and pro-social that allow the wealth that has accumulated under this to now do beautiful, amazing things.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're talking about in some cases would be like patronage. Like it would be like, what is the group of Bitcoiners, if they become wealthy by owning a lot of Bitcoin, what some subset of those Bitcoiners are going to decide that getting human species living on other planets is very, very important, and they're going to dedicate resources to trying to push that forward. And I think from a government perspective, I think part of the reason why, and there's plenty of Bitcoin folks that are more on the like theoretical side of things, spend more time thinking about stuff like that have views of what this world is going to look like after Bitcoin kind of quote unquote wins. But I think a lot of us are more focused on what is the path going to look like as Bitcoin gears up to increasingly fight the fight against governments and against fiat currencies, so that there is some amount of struggle to imagine what comes after that, because we don't know what either the timing or the specifics around what that fight's
maybe
gonna
we
look
don't
like.
know either. Maybe we
Well, I think you don't know, and I also think, let me be blunt about it. I also feel that people, you know that part of that meme, I just found out about Bitcoin and I'm here to save it, or something like this. Maybe in part, I feel like I've been fighting some fights since the early 1990s. And then Bitcoin comes around, 2009, 2010, and it's the newcomer on the block. And I'm super excited to see it. But I want to go back to fighting the fights that I was fighting in the early 1990s, one of which is about inflation.